Hey, hi everyone, I'm Andrea and this is Kitchen Conversations and we're coming to you live from the Secret Kitchen. My guest today, the one and only Cherylyn Salerno. We don't have an applause button.
Thank you.
So I'm applauding you.
Thank you for having me.
So I wanted to get you here for a while, but it finally worked out. So first of all, let's just say right from the get-go, Cherylyn is an excellent cook. Not a good cook, an excellent cook.
Thank you.
Because you are.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
But that didn't just happen. And that's what brings you here. So where does this come from? What is your earliest memory of being in the kitchen and doing something?
So my mom was a really wonderful cook. You know, we would joke around, we still joke around, my sister and I today, like she was the MacGyver of the kitchen. She could open up the pantry and pull out random ingredients that did not make sense.
At the time.
Like you'd be like, she'd pull it out and within 40 minutes you would have a dinner on the table that your friends would be talking about for weeks. I mean, I have friends to this day that talk about some of the most basic things my mom made because she was such a good cook. And I remember doing Thanksgiving mornings with her. I remember waking up on Sunday morning to the whir of the blender from the Sunday sauce, and coming out in the kitchen and the sausage was sizzling and it was jumping all over and the meatballs were being fried and the sauce was bubbling. Like, it was how we grew up that food was love. And she would often say the most important ingredient in any meal is love.
And I totally feel that way, yeah. And that's part of, I think, that's part of what makes you a good cook, is that loving ingredient part. I didn't grow up that way, so I totally understand that.
Yeah.
But now, were you helping your mom when you were young, or were you were observing what was happening in the kitchen?
Mostly observing and probably trying to steal the food. So I would help with some things, but I would often get like bored. Because you know, when you're a kid, you don't realize how valuable this is. Now, if I could go back and spend one more hour in the kitchen with her, what would I ask her to make I know what I would ask her to make.
What would you ask her?
I can't figure out.
What?
It's so silly. She used to make, in the summertime, we would call it noodle salad. And it was like the elbow noodles with, she would like shave carrots in it and she would cut celery. And again, my sister and I have tried to duplicate this over the years. No matter what we do, we cannot get it right. We can't nail it. We've looked up recipes. We've tried bringing our stuff together. We can't get it exactly right. And it was because she was the type of cook that didn't really follow a recipe. She would check the texture, she would check the taste, the color.
Add a little of this, add a little of that. That's for me, that's the best kind of cooking.
Well, and that's where the skill set is, right?
Yes.
And that's something that you learn over time. I remember the first time I was making stuffed mushrooms for like Christmas Eve. I don't know why I volunteered to make that. Really? And I called her and I said, okay, all right, how do I do this? And she was like, well, you take a little bit of breadcrumb, and she was from Jersey City, so she had the accent. There were no R's. There's no R's in Jersey City. They missed that letter out of the alphabet. And she was like, well, you take a little breadcrumb and you take a little cheese and like salt and pepper and you like put a little bit of olive oil until you get the right texture. Great. What's the right texture?
What's the right texture?
Well, you'll just know. No, Ma, I will not just know. I've never stuffed a mushroom in my life. I will not just know. And it was one of the first examples as a pseudo-adult where I was like, this woman has a gift. Because she really believed that was just a normal thing, that I'm just going to mix this together and eyeball it and know that that's what goes in the mushroom. And I pulled it together and it was fine. But it was frustrating because I was like, but how much? A cup, a half a cup, 2 teaspoons, a tablespoon, what?
But she didn't just get that way either, because that's years of experimenting and trying it out and knowing, oh, this isn't right, I'll try it this way. But are you a recipe person?
I was early on. So in addition to my mom, I had other really strong cooking influences. And that came very accidentally. My best friend growing up, her mom was a good cook but made stuff very different from my own mom. but a very good cook. My grandparents on my dad's side, same thing, Sunday sauce. My Uncle Roger, fantastic cook. He's who I would hang out with in the kitchen when I was in my like teen years.
Okay.
He's who I would hang out with. I would literally sit there and just watch.
See, you were very lucky that you had these amazing influences.
And then I picked up jobs along the way where I had the opportunity to be in kitchens. So waitressing jobs, or my earliest job was at a deli and started on the register, but I was a reliable employee that lived close. So when it was time to prep for Thanksgiving and prep for Christmas and prep for Easter, I was in the back with the kitchen people putting the food together. So I learned how to do it. And then when I started cooking for myself, probably after college, I followed recipes. I remember in college, one of the things I made, and I thought I was so fancy, was like, it came in a box at the time, and it was like you bought the chicken and you had this box of almost like a Stouffer's mix, and you put it in a pan, and you followed, it came with like the seasoning pack, like it was no skill set.
Oh God, I remember things
this is back like late 90s, like early 2000s.
Okay, I do remember things like that.
And I would make it and be like, I am just impressed with myself.
Oh.
And now when I think back, I'm like, what was I even eating? Like, what was the sodium content of that?
I know.
Of that package?
I think we're all a little smarter now.
But as time went on, I sort of learned and I gained more confidence, and I would like watch different things on YouTube. I love cookbooks. Like, I love just reading through a cookbook. I love reading it.
Who do you love? Which cookbook authors are inspirational for you?
I have so many, and I sort of pick and choose what I want out of each one. Like, I like Giada's Pasta Vazul. I like her biscotti cookies. But the Barefoot Contessa, I like her for something else. And then I've sort of made my own chicken soup recipe over the years, which my kids go nuts over, just taking bits and pieces from what everybody else does. Just whatever, like I'll look at something and I'll be like, that looks good, but I think I'm gonna change it, which is what my mom evolved into. Oh, here's a great recipe. Oh, I think I'll change it.
So, Cherylyns, let me just tell you that I am exactly that way. I look at something and I say, that's a great recipe, what can I do differently?
Right.
And so I never take a recipe and use it that way.
Right.
I always have to put my Andrea touch
Right.
on it. And then it really becomes yours.
And it works.
Yeah, because there's people that are so bound to the recipe.
Yes.
It says, I have a teaspoon of cinnamon. Well, that's what I use. But you know what? I love cinnamon. Why can't I add a little more?
Well, even with our Christmas baking, because again, growing up, that was very traditional.
And can we just say that you have a sister who is a great baker?
Well, and I am not the baker.
She is a great baker.
She is the baker.
We'll have her another day.
She is the baker.
She is an excellent baker.
But growing up, this was something that my mom, my sister, and I did together. And again, I was very much the helper. I would do what I was told, and they would often joke, and when it was time to go grab lunch, I'd be like, oh, I'll go grab lunch, and then run 3 different errands because I was just bored with the baking. But at some point along the way, we needed like milk for some recipe, and I was like, well, if we're gonna use milk, why not use half and half? Wouldn't that be better? And we like changed the recipe because it added just this little
more
element.
richness.
Right.
Yes. Totally.
But she is the baker. She's a fantastic baker. I bake very little. She's so good. There's no point in baking if she's around.
There's no reason to, right?
Even if my kids have something at school, they know to call Mimi. They don't ask mommy to bake cupcakes. They call Mimi and say, Mimi, we need cupcakes.
But when they want a fabulous dinner, Mom.
That's right.
So what is your most favorite thing to cook?
Oh,
I know that's always a tough
really
question
tough
when people
question.
ask me that too. But what do you love to cook?
I think it depends who
I'm coming for dinner tomorrow. What are we having?
If you are coming for dinner tomorrow, what are we having? Let me think. I would either do, you eat seafood, right?
I do.
Okay, so I would either do a crab cake, that's phenomenal.
Oh, see, a crab cake.
I
Excellent.
also make a pasta with shrimp.
You didn't happen to bring any crab cakes,
No,
did you?
I didn't.
I should have asked.
I do a pasta with shrimp that everybody loves. And what's cool about that is it's super easy, but it looks so impressive. And it just takes a few things to make it look impressive. the parsley. Again, that was from my mom.
But
Throw parsley on everything.
That's right. That's right. I think what some people don't understand is that it's not about super fancy ingredients. You can take them, like think about your mom.
Super basic.
You're going in your pantry, you take basic ingredients, but you have the technique to zhuzh them up and make them awesome. And you throw a little parsley on it, damn, it's going to be great.
Some parsley, some grated lemon, like the rind. All of a sudden, not only do you have a flavor boost, but you've got this aesthetically pleasing dish.
It looks awesome. I mean, that's really what it is. But that's the love. That's the taking the time to add the parsley, to make it pretty.
Right.
We eat with our eyes.
Right.
So it should look nice too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, see, that is nice. Now, what was your favorite, or I should even say, what is your favorite holiday for cooking?
Thanksgiving. And it's so odd because I no longer cook for Thanksgiving, which I'm like so embarrassed to admit because I feel like my mom is so disappointed. Me and my sister go through this every year where
you work full time.
I do.
This is a...
I do, but every year we have the conversation. It'll happen in the next 2 weeks, and the conversation will go, you think we should cook this year? Yeah, we should. We should. We should. Mom's been gone 10, we really should. Like, we're going to do this. We're going to cook. And then after about a week of perseverating, I will call her and say, everybody knows we can cook though. Like, who are we trying to prove something to at this point? Let's just order. So I would say my favorite memory of cooking is Thanksgiving.
Okay.
But I know I take the easy way out for Thanksgiving. It's a gift I've given myself with my dad's encouragement and permission over the years because he has said.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
Because I think, look, I work full time and, people sometimes say to me, well, how do you do all this? Well, the truth is I can't do anything else because I work full time and I do this. And there's 2 YouTube channels and sometimes I have to do my laundry and, vacuum the house.
Right.
I don't know.
Sometimes.
So it is challenging. So I get it. Yeah. I mean, I totally get it. It's not, no shame in that. Taking, like people say, well, oh, you don't make your own puff pastry?
Yeah, no.
No, I don't.
No, I don't.
And I don't
feel bad about it.
I don't either because there's so many wonderful shortcuts that you can take.
Right.
And it's okay.
Right.
It's totally good. Now, what would be like your, I remember recently you talking about chicken cutlets.
Yes.
I don't even know why that came up in conversation, but I remember that it did. So is that a staple in your household?
That is a staple, but it's one of those meals it's tough to pull together on a weeknight after a work day. So that's usually like a Sunday prep sort of a meal. But I do cook most nights. Like yes, we get pizza, and yes, we'll do the Uber Eats here and there, but most nights I'm making dinner, and again, that's how I grew up. So
right.
That's a value that I have.
Well, see, that's a good question because you're a working mom, and so you've got 2 kids. You're making dinner, and for people listening, so like, what are your go-tos for dinner for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? It's during the week.
Sometimes it's super easy. Sometimes it's the prep on Sunday, so you have the leftovers. Like if I do the Sunday sauce with the meatballs. We know at some point during the week there's going to be something else. Maybe it'll be meatballs on a sandwich, or maybe it'll be, I don't particularly love raviolis, but my family does, so they'll eat the raviolis. Maybe it'll be just a leftover pasta where you just throw it together, but the sauce is homemade, the sauce is there, the meatballs are homemade. I like the pasta with the shrimp during the week because it comes together so fast.
Yeah, as long as it takes to cook pasta, you basically have a meal.
And recently I started doing grilled chicken over salad, and I did not think it was going to go over big, but they're asking for it.
Even your kids?
Yes.
Wow, that's interesting. I would not have expected that.
Now,
I have that all the time.
And I put, I do the Kalamata olives, and I do, I'll take some of the fresh mozzarella and like sort of cube it out, and then I throw a couple croutons on top, and it's like a homemade dressing.
Right.
They think it's the best thing that ever happened to their lives. Like, they're like, oh, we're having grilled chicken salads, and here I am saying...
Wow, that's pretty sophisticated for kids.
Yeah. But they've always eaten what I've made. So my daughter is super easy to feed. She'll try anything. She'll eat just about anything.
I think that's great when kids do that.
Yeah, my son not so much, but we'll get him there.
Yeah, you'll get him there. I think it's that's the challenge. I mean, my mom, there were 5 of us. My mom made dinner every night. We didn't go out.
Right.
And sometimes I look back and I think, God, 5 meals in a row. I don't know how what am I saying? 5? There's 7 in a row.
Yeah.
How do you figure it out? Do you plan for the week or?
I do. So what I found works is, unless in the summer, but now that the school year is back in swing and we've got after school activities and
that's even more challenging.
And I don't want. I personally don't want to eat pizza 3 nights out of 7. I don't want them eating pizza 3 nights out of 7.
And sadly, many people do that.
And you have to sometimes with the activities. Like sometimes that just happens. But I find that if I sit down on Sunday, and I invite everybody to sit down with me, like it's an invitation to say, let's talk about what we're going to eat this week.
Oh, that's a novel approach. I rather like that.
And then sometimes my kids will say, oh, we just had chicken at Dad's, we don't want any more chicken. Or Dad made us burgers last week, we don't want any burgers. No. That's fine, so then let's talk about what we are going to have. And then every once in a while someone will throw out something crazy. Like, my son will be like, could we have beef stew on Tuesday? And I'm like, yeah, no, we can't. I can make beef stew for you next weekend. But that's the stuff they want to take for lunches too.
Oh,
like it's interesting.
Okay,
so talking to them about lunches today for the week, who wants homemade chicken soup? Who wants beef stew? And I'm like, guys, I don't think that that's in the cards this weekend. But I'll get it on the menu for next weekend and you'll have it, but I invite them. Sometimes they participate, sometimes they don't, but I sort of look at the calendar and say, okay, these are our busiest nights where dinner has to be quick. And sometimes it's basic, like just making some taco meat and making the burritos out of it, or taking the taco meat, turning it into a quesadilla so it's different than what they had the night before.
Yeah.
And then sometimes they ask for that for lunch in their lunch boxes. It's just a matter of figuring it out. How do I make it work simply?
I always feel when you invite your kids into the conversation about the cooking, they're more likely to eat it because they got to say, hey Mom, this is what I want.
Well, and they'll both send me YouTube videos. Hey Mom, can we make this? Hey Mom, can you make this? And they both do it. And sometimes it's something very obscure that I'm like, I don't even know where to begin with that.
Like oxtail
right.
stew or
and
something.
Then other times
we don't have that.
Yeah, we can make that. Like sure we can do that.
But now do they show any inclination like, hey Mom, let's do something together in the kitchen, let's cook?
I think the idea is there, but the execution is off because when I'm doing something like that, they want to be doing something else.
Okay. Of course.
Because again, a lot of food prep is happening on a Sunday, and my daughter has a friend over, or my son's on his gaming device, and I'm not going to pull them off and make them stand in the kitchen.
Yeah.
But a lot of times I've noticed recently, my daughter will sit and talk to me while I make dinner, which is what I did growing up also. And I think you sort of learn by osmosis.
Yeah, I learned a lot, I think, from watching.
Yeah.
My mom never said, Andrea, help me do anything. In fact, it was, like I said, she didn't really cook with love.
Right.
So it was like, let's get this thing done, blah, 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 blah. Andrea set the table.
Right.
But I did watch, but that's as far as, I never got the hands on.
I think you pick up something
you do.
in the watching.
I realize
being
that.
the helper, get me another onion. Go grab the olive oil. Could you get the kosher salt out of the cabinet because I don't want to use the table salt? Could you get the pink salt instead of the kosher salt? Well, why are you using the pink salt? Why don't you just use the salt in front of you? Well, let me explain to you why we're using the pink salt, So I think there's an opportunity there, but I enjoy the conversation. Because as I'm cooking, it's not the eye to eye, so it's less intimidating. And she'll sort of tell me about her day, or she'll tell me about something that's, maybe stressing her out.
But she's watching.
Yeah.
And even I think when you're watching, you don't even know you're learning, but you are absorbing it.
And I think that's why the first lesson was me doing the same, sitting across the counter.
Just talking
to my mom about whatever. while she
But
was...
you're watching really what...
Well, I could see in my mind's eye, I could see her chopping the garlic. Like, I could see the knife, which I'm trying to get from my dad, and he's not giving it up, but I'm gonna get it. It's got the wooden handle. I could see her chopping the garlic. Like, I could see it in, like, how finely she chopped the garlic. Like, she did not mess around with the garlic, you know? And just on the cutting board, and I could just see, like, how much time and effort she put into it. And she really did. She really did a lot.
You know, what ingredient do you use, or what ingredients do you use now in your life that your mom didn't have in the house?
That's a good question.
Like, I'll tell you, I never even heard of, strange as this sounds, I never heard of olive oil till I got married. And I'm
Really?
not kidding you. I didn't know it. We always had probably like Wesson oil or something.
Wow, that's wild.
My mom was salt, pepper, garlic powder. And I'm not exaggerating.
Wow.
I never even knew that there were peppercorns that people ground. Honestly,
Wow.
that's how I grew up. Huh.
That's
But
wild.
yeah, I know, I can't even believe it. And I remember when I got married, and my husband, or my mother-in-law, who was like a killer cook, talking about olive oil, and me going, what the hell, olive oil? Olives have,
Yeah.
I mean, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Olives come in a can. I had no conception of olive oil. So what do you think what kind of things are you doing now that you never really saw as a kid?
Probably the Kalamata olives. I don't remember having those as a kid.
Probably
it was always
regular
black olive. Black
olives,
and, you know, the green
yeah,
with the
yeah, with
red
the pimento. That's all I ever saw.
Avocado oil, but again, I don't know that they even had avocado
Cheryly,
oil back then.
I don't think so.
But I use avocado oil. I use a lot of different flavored vinegars, where my mom was
Yes.
a hardcore, you know, red wine vinegar
yeah.
to the death. Like, and salad was great, but red wine, where I have, you know, like right now on the counter is a fig balsamic, and it's delicious, and everybody's... That's, I think, why they like these grilled chicken salads so much, because of the balsamic.
I never, I don't know if they were around we didn't have those kinds of
I don't
ingredients
think so.
typically
So
growing
I
up.
think it's ingredients that
Even the
are...
salts, all the different
There
salts,
was not all
right?
those salts, no.
I mean, there was kosher salt and table salt.
But that was it.
I know, yeah.
But that was it.
I think so.
But I think probably a lot of stuff that she did use, I mean, the cooking style is what we consider to be mostly Italian. Now, if you take us into an Italian chef's kitchen, maybe they would sort of say, oh, well, not exactly, but that's our perception. So the garlic, the parsley, the olive oil, the freshly ground pepper, it's the only kind of pepper I have in my house. Freshly ground. Even on my table, I have a little tiny little pepper grinder. So it's things like that, lemon, a lot of fresh lemon. I love fresh lemon when I do my roasted chicken.
Lemon growing up.
I love it in the shrimp with the pasta.
Of course.
I just made a fish last week, and I actually did it on the grill burner outside because I didn't want the house to smell. And so I heated it up, put a little olive oil in the pan, put the fish in that had like salt, pepper. And after it was halfway through, I threw in like 10 Kalamata olives. I threw in some capers.
Oh my
I
God.
halved the lemon. I put that in there, and I just let it cook. And I was like, I think this is gonna work. And it came off the grill, and well, it was in a frying pan, but it came inside, and everybody ate it. Everybody loved it. I hope I can duplicate it because I didn't write it down.
You know, that's the thing. Very often when you switch things up, which again I do all the time, and then I say, somebody will say, oh, would you make that such and such again? And I think, how did I do that? What did I use? But I don't write anything down either.
No. So I kind of, it's the staples, but I try to change it up for my own self because I enjoy that, and you know, for them too. And my daughter loves the fish. You know, when I make it, I have to throw an extra piece on because she loves it.
I really do. What would you like to cook that you've not done yet? What would you like to conquer?
You know what I can't do well, and my friends laugh because they'll be like, you can make like these obscure things that nobody would touch. I can't do a good pot roast, no matter what. It never comes out the way it's supposed to. It's like my arch nemesis of food. Now I can make short ribs.
I know you make short
ribs, which
is similar.
You'd think
that's interesting.
Which is so funny to me that it's like this like staple in so many people's winter meal prep.
Yes, it is.
And I just...
Of all things, I thought you were going to say something exotic like octopus or...
No, because I would make that. I would make that without hesitation.
How would you do octopus?
I know with the octopus you have to soak it first. I've never made it, but I've read about it. So I know you have to like really, really soak it in, I believe it's a brine. And then you grill it, but octopus is tough. You have to like really...
There's a bit of a technique.
Yeah, and I've never tried it, but I would try that before I made a pot roast.
That is pretty crazy.
Wild, I know.
Huh.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even know where to buy octopus, actually.
Oh, you can get it.
I don't, we might have to work on the octopus.
You can get it.
But a pot roast, of all things, because that feels like something that's so basic.
And it's the funniest thing, and like I have a couple friends, and they will laugh. They'll be like, oh yeah, Cherylyns can whip you up, like a truffle risotto with like lobster in it, but can't make a pot roast, it's
well,
just
I think we're
funny.
totally coming to your house for dinner.
You're welcome anytime. You know that.
I told you she's an excellent cook. Pot roast, we'll have to work on that. I grew up, pot roast was a staple in our house.
Right.
For all the holidays and whatnot. My mom never did brisket. She didn't. If my mother didn't like an ingredient, it never came in the house.
Well, that was true for us too.
I think that's probably true for a lot of people.
Yeah.
My mom didn't like cranberry sauce, so I never even saw a cranberry in my life.
Interesting.
Until after we would go to other people's for Thanksgiving and be like, "What's that?"
What is that?
And my mom would say, "Oh, that's cranberry sauce."
But I don't like it.
But I don't like it. Oh, that's why it never came in the house.
Right.
But then I realized I like it.
Yeah.
So I make it all the time.
My sister does that really well too, homemade. She makes homemade cranberry sauce, which
So
I think you've had.
Yes, you and your sister are quite the combination, a cook and a baker, really.
Yes, it's perfect.
It is.
Because it's perfect. And she's a good cook. She just doesn't love it. She's a good cook. She makes what is it? The chicken pot pie. Her chicken pot pie is amazing. She's a good cook. She cooks all the time, but she's kind of like, Whereas she loves baking.
She loves to bake.
She really enjoys it. She loves the process, and I think that's what I don't like. I don't like the specificity of baking.
I feel like with baking, there's a little more of a science. If it calls for a teaspoon of baking powder, you can't increase it.
Right.
Whereas like with cinnamon or raisins or something, you could add more.
Right.
But with regular cooking, you could really be freeform and throw a little of this and a little of that. You're probably going to get good results. Baking is a little bit different. But I still look at even a baking recipe and I say, changing that. I just can't do something without making a change.
And I won't do that with baking. I will follow it, but it annoys me. Like I'm like,
I get that, and I hear other people say that to me too. Well, why can't I do it this way? Well, you can, but
right.
Cooking is, I think, a lot more freeform.
It is.
Although a lot of people are very bound by that recipe. It says half an onion. And I'll get like, well,
I'm using a whole onion. I'm not wasting the onion.
I hear it, exactly. But I have people say, well, what if I want to use more? Then use more.
Go right ahead.
But isn't it funny that some people feel that it's a half an onion? How big of an onion?
Right. They get stuck.
It could be a big onion, it could be a little onion, but I would never use a half an onion. I would never waste the onion.
That's how.
You know what I also never saw growing up? Fresh garlic.
Oh, that's
cloves of garlic
to me.
I didn't because garlic powder.
No, that woman chopped fresh garlic and parsley. I swear we would joke and say secretly there's garlic and parsley in our eggs because she just used it all the time, and I use it a lot.
I do. Well, see, I do too. I do too. I just think that. The joy of cooking is to experiment, and that's the joy of it. But if you're just so bound by a recipe, I don't think it's nearly even as fun.
It's not, and again, I think for me, it's about food is love. So if I love you and I'm inviting you into my home, into my kitchen, to my table, I want to share something with you that's going to feed your soul and your belly. Right. Like I want you to walk out being like, I'm so happy right now. Like, I just feel so full of love and so full, and
And
I'm just so
we
excited.
can't wait to come back.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah,
That's the
I
goal.
do.
That's the goal for me.
I do. Well, Cherylyns, it was such a pleasure.
Thank you.
I've had all these questions I wanted to ask you for the longest time, so thank you for coming.
Oh
to
my
the
gosh,
Secret
my
Kitchen.
pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
It was wonderful. Well, thank you for watching today. My guest, Cherylyn Salerno. And you stay tuned for another episode of Kitchen Conversations. Bye, everyone.